Welcome back to the Motivated Mind Zone. Glad to have you here.
Great to be back. Today, we're really digging into something crucial, the architecture of mastery, you could say.
Yeah, it's easy to think, just reading about a skill is enough.
Right. But the sources we're looking at today, they argue pretty forcefully that, well, true expertise needs something more. It needs practical, controlled repetition, deeply understood repetition.
Absolutely. And we've got some fascinating source material. It doesn't just lay out a really effective learning blueprint, they call it the imitation technique, but it also illustrates it through three really different passions.
Yeah. Tennis, horse riding, and poetry.
Exactly. Sounds like a bit of a strange mix, maybe. But the patterns you see, discipline, motivation, across these different fields, they're remarkably similar. It's quite striking.
So our mission today, really, it's twofold. First, we're going to meticulously dissect the three steps of this learning technique. We need to understand how it sort of systematically shifts knowledge from your conscious thought,
That slow thinking part.
right, into automatic, almost physical muscle memory. And second, we want to pull out those underlying psychological drivers, what keeps people going.
The motivation, the perseverance.
Yeah, and the meaning people find in these activities. We'll look at what the examples of tennis, horse riding, and poetry reveal about that.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Starting with that blueprint, the imitation technique. The source material presents it as a systematic practice, and, well, it makes a pretty bold promise, doesn't it?
It really does. Tangible results, clearer execution, more confidence, whether it's language or, complex physical stuff.
And what I find fascinating is how it forces the learner to kind of bypass
Yeah.
that usual intellectual hurdle.
Exactly. We often try to think our way through a skill, grammar rules, the mechanics of a tennis swing, whatever it is. We use that very cognitive, sometimes slow part of the brain.
Right.
This technique flips that. It trains you to first just listen to the sounds and the patterns, and then this is key, immediately produce the same sounds. The goal isn't deep analysis right then and there.
No, it's about shifting it. Learning from just thinking about it.
To doing it
Yeah.
automatically. It's all about reaching that automaticity.
And that automaticity, that's the holy grail of mastery, isn't it? Getting rid of that hesitation, that moment where you're consciously thinking, okay, foot goes here, say this word now.
Mhm. You want it to flow naturally, like breathing. The sources highlight this as, well, one of the best ways to improve things like accent and pronunciation.
But it applies more broadly, right? Anything structural where sequence and rhythm matter.
Absolutely. Think about a golf swing, for example. The sound and pattern isn't words, obviously, but it's the kinesthetic sense of the right rhythm, the right tempo.
Uh-huh.
You have to train that muscle sequence until the pattern just happens. It's reflexive.
Sure.
That frees up your brain, your conscious mind, to focus on strategy, not just the mechanics.
Gotcha. So the source breaks this path down into three steps.
Yeah.
A clear pathway for anyone trying to, really internalize something complex.
Precisely. Step one is the foundation, the exposure phase. Listen and read.
Simple enough on the surface.
Right. It's pure input at this stage. Just initial absorption. You're listening to the correct audio, the target sound, the rhythm, the phrase, and at the same time, you're reading the script or maybe a description.
So you're connecting sound and sight.
Exactly. Auditory input, visual input, you're getting that initial link down. Absorbing the pattern without the pressure of actually having to do it yet. Think of it like loading the software.
Okay, loading the software. Then comes step two. This sounds like where the real work, the grind, kicks in. Listen and repeat. The practice loop, they call it.
Yeah, this is where repetition tolerance is built. In this step, the material gives you a pause, a deliberate, clear pause right after the input.
To hear it.
You hear the original sound or phrase, and then you've got that window, that space to repeat it. to mimic what you just heard or saw performed.
And this is for building that basic muscle memory, that quick recall.
Exactly that. You're actively trying to match the input, but you have that little bit of breathing room in the pause to kind of correct yourself or at least try again.
And the source material is really emphatic about this, isn't it? It says this step has to be repeated many times.
Oh, absolutely. It hammers that home. Don't rush past step 2. The instruction is crystal clear. Keep going until the words or the movements or whatever it
They're just
is.
coming out of your mouth automatically.
Precisely. That tells you repetition isn't just, a good idea. It's non-negotiable if you want to make that shift into deep, reflexive learning. Automaticity.
It's like carving a groove, right? Deeper and deeper with each repetition.
That's a perfect way to put it. Grooving the pathway. If you still have to consciously think about the rule or the sequence,
You haven't got it yet.
you haven't mastered that step. And that willingness to just grind through step 2 until it's truly second nature, that's what separates serious practitioners from dabblers. Doesn't matter if it's language or sports.
Okay, but here's a question. If you're just repeating immediately in step 2, isn't there a risk of drilling in mistakes? If you misunderstand the input, how does this method account for feedback before you move on?
That's a really important point, a common pitfall for self-learners, definitely. The source material seems to imply, through how step 3 is structured, that the main goal of step 2 is building the motor pattern and the speed first, even if it's not perfect yet.
So volume over initial accuracy.
To an extent, yes. The sheer volume of repetition builds that basic motor confidence. But the refinement, the correction, really comparing it closely to the master version, that's the job of step 3.
Right, which brings us to step 3, shadowing, the final stage, and apparently the most demanding.
Definitely the most demanding. Shadowing means you listen to the original material and you say it or you perform the movement at the exact same time simultaneously.
Whoa, okay, no pause.
No pause. You're actively moving in sync with the source. It demands total integration of the skill because your brain has to process the input and generate the output concurrently. There's no time for that analytical delay.
Yeah, I can see why the sources call that the trickiest one.
It absolutely is.
Especially for something like pronunciation. Trying to match timing, stress, intonation, all happening at once. It sounds incredibly difficult. Why is doing it simultaneously so important for fine-tuning? What's happening neurologically?
Well, it essentially forces the task out of that high-effort, slower processing part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex. When you're shadowing effectively, you just don't have the mental bandwidth left to analyze grammar or consciously choose words.
The system has to run on instinct.
Exactly. You're training that auditory motor feedback loop to self-correct instantly based on the comparison between what you're hearing and what you're producing. You're basically hardwiring it into the motor cortex, making the skill an instinctive reaction, not a thought-out deliberation.
And the source gives that great analogy to make it relatable, right?
Yeah, the singing along to your favorite song analogy.
That's pretty much like practicing along to your favorite song. It makes sense. You're trying to hit every beat, every nuance, the rhythm, the cadence, perfectly in sync.
It's the ultimate test for automaticity. If you can shadow something well, you've truly internalized it. That skill is yours.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting for me. We see this clear, systematic, three-step process for training a skill. But what fuels someone to actually do that? To embrace potentially years of repetition needed to master something complex, whether it's physical or artistic?
Right, the motivation piece.
Yeah. And how does that systematic rhythm you need for shadowing, matching sounds perfectly for, how does that parallel, say, the footwork and timing needed to groove a perfect forehand in tennis? Let's pivot to that first deep dive. Tennis.
Okay, so we're looking first at someone who's been playing tennis for almost 20 years, started really young, around 7 or 8. That kind of longevity, well, it's a powerful case study in sustained commitment.
And the source highlights something key.
Yeah.
The root of this long-term passion wasn't just, loving the game from day one. It was a specific person.
A specific external influence, yeah. The individual credits having a fantastic teacher right at the beginning.
That teacher was passionate
Yeah,
herself.
exactly. Her enthusiasm was infectious, apparently. It rubbed off on the young student. And this really shows us something crucial about how commitment often starts. It's not always internal drive initially.
It can be sparked by someone else's energy.
Precisely. Mentorship provides that initial push, that motivation to get through the early stages. Step one, step two, which can often be, let's face it, pretty discouraging.
Okay, so the teacher gets them hooked. But what keeps them going for 2 decades? The source points to two big things: the mental challenge and the social side.
Yes, the psychological aspect of tennis seems huge for long-term engagement. It's explicitly called a very psychological game. The player mentions if you're having an off day playing badly.
Which happens to everyone.
Right. You have to push yourself to continue. It's this constant battle, sometimes point by point, not to give up. And that's the real parallel to the imitation technique, isn't it?
How's
Well, every time you miss a sound in shadowing or stumble, you have that choice. Stop, get frustrated, or push yourself to correct and keep going. In tennis, every unforced error demands that same mental reset, that resilience.
So the dedication isn't just about the physical skill of hitting the ball. It's about managing your own headspace, your internal monologue.
Absolutely. Tennis is unique too because there's no clock running out in the same way as other sports. You have to sustain that mental toughness potentially for hours. Often the biggest opponent is yourself.
Winning the internal battle.
Exactly. The intrinsic motivation comes from conquering that. If your serve goes off in one game, the challenge isn't just fixing the technique. It's maintaining your confidence, your discipline, despite that setback. It needs the same kind of focus and immediate self-correction you practice in shadowing.
But they don't have to fight those mental battles completely alone.
Right.
The social aspect comes in.
A huge factor. While you're going through this tough mental test, you also get these immense social rewards. The player really emphasizes making lots of friends, especially through playing doubles.
Ah, doubles. That changes the dynamic.
Completely. It's a crucial balancing act. What could be a very isolating struggle becomes communal. Doubles brings in strategy, teamwork. It lessens that intense personal pressure a bit. If you're struggling, your partner is there.
So it keeps it fun, social, not just punishingly difficult.
Exactly. That balance seems key for sustainability.
And then there's the practical side. The source mentions accessibility.
Yes, a major logistical point for sticking with it for 20 years. Basically, all you need is a racket and a court. Often public courts are available.
Right, they contrast it with something like skiing.
Yeah, skiing needs expensive gear, special clothes, travel, much higher barriers to just getting out there and doing it.
Fewer barriers mean fewer excuses.
Pretty much. Lower barriers mean it's easier to be consistent. And that consistency feeds into the final benefit they mentioned. Fitness. Tennis is highlighted as a fantastic way to keep fit all year round.
And they gave that specific anecdote about playing in Australia.
That really stuck with me too, playing every single week of the year while living there, and noting that even elsewhere, maybe only about 3 months might restrict play due to weather.
That shows real commitment, enabled by how accessible the sport is. It becomes a year-round habit, cementing it as a true passion.
So the tennis example really paints a picture, doesn't it? Long-term passion fueled by good mentorship early on, the inherent mental challenge, social support, and just practical accessibility. It's a great illustration of applying that repetition tolerance over the long haul.
Okay, let's shift gears now. Completely different vibe. From decades of structured dedication in tennis to something relatively new, maybe more unpredictable: horse riding.
Yeah, this person's only been writing for about a year, but the way they talk about it, the depth of engagement, it's clearly already a powerful passion.
And the origin story is kind of relatable, isn't it? It wasn't some lifelong dream.
Not at all. They admit they never imagined being so keen on it. The whole thing started from that almost throwaway line you hear people say.
Oh, I've always wanted to do that.
Exactly, that stupid thing people often say. We all do it, right? We think about things we'd like to do.
But actually starting, that's the hurdle. We get stuck maybe at step one, just thinking about it, or balk at the idea of repeating the basics in step two.
It's the classic killer of new hobbies. But in this case, a friend just cut through it, simply challenged them. Why don't you then?
Just like that.
Just like that. A simple question that demanded action, not just thought. It's a great reminder, really. The gap between wanting a passion and living it is often just taking that one, maybe slightly uncomfortable first step.
So they take this step. What was the draw to horses specifically?
It seems rooted in the animal itself.
Hmm.
The writer mentions being struck by how horses are so big and powerful, but so beautiful, especially seeing them race.
There's an awe there.
Definitely. And a sense of amazement, they specifically mention this, that these huge, powerful creatures actually let people ride on their backs. It's not just a sport. It's seen as this incredible partnership.
A partnership where one partner is, well, significantly stronger and has its own mind.
Precisely. And that leads to unique physical demands. Riding is described as very physically demanding. But it's not just about strength.
No, it's about harmony.
Yes, the body has to be in harmony and move with the horse. It's about coordination, core strength, reacting, anticipating.
Like a very complex, dynamic form of shadowing.
That's a great way to think about it. You're trying to perform with the source material simultaneously, but the source material is alive, powerful, and, well, unpredictable.
Right. And that unpredictability seems key here. Tennis had internal psychological struggles, battling your own game. Horse riding introduces these big external variables.
Absolutely. And before we even get to the horse's personality, there's the basic physical risk, falling off.
Yeah, they mentioned falling a few times.
And they share that really interesting insight, almost a paradox. The more you fall, the less it hurts.
That really resonates. It feels like a metaphor for resilience in almost anything you learn.
It really does. That first failure, messing up shadowing, hitting a bad shot in tennis, the first actual fall, it stings. It's embarrassing, discouraging maybe.
But falling again and getting back up.
And realizing you survived it, you learn from it,
Yeah.
it builds a kind of psychological armor, a tolerance. If you know you can recover, the setback itself feels less catastrophic. The fear decreases.
So failure becomes just part of the process, not the end of the road.
Exactly. It makes that idea of repeating step 2 many times feel less like a punishment and more like, well, just how learning works. Discomfort is part of growth.
Okay, so you learn to handle falling. But then there's the horse itself. The source mentions their moods.
Yeah, that's a huge part of the challenge. Trying to understand the horse because they have moods. You could have an amazing ride 1 week fast, in sync, fantastic.
The next week.
Slow and miserable, just because the horse isn't feeling it that day, for whatever reason.
Wow. So mastery isn't just about perfecting your own technique. It's like applied emotional intelligence towards your partner who happens to be a horse.
It really is.
This raises a fascinating question then. What does this teach us about dealing with inconsistency or working with external factors, personalities, situations that we can't fully control, compared to just focusing on our own internal skill?
I think it teaches profound patience and adaptability. In tennis, if you mess up, the fault and the fix are usually internal. You work on your swing, your focus.
Right.
With horse riding, you could be doing everything technically perfect, but your partner is having an off day or is spooked by something. You can't just force it.
You have to adjust.
You have to adjust. You develop flexible responses. You learn that success isn't always about perfect execution of your plan. Sometimes it's about harmonious adaptation to things completely outside your control.
That feels like a really valuable life lesson, actually, embedded right there in the passion itself.
Definitely. Sometimes the goal isn't perfection, it's harmony, adapting to the moment.
Okay, so from the physical demands and the unpredictable nature of partnering with an animal, let's shift to our third passion. This one feels more internal, more distilled poetry.
Yeah, this is all about condensing complex emotions, big ideas into the fewest possible words. Maximum impact from minimum material.
And it's another interesting origin story,
Mm,
a late bloom. This person studied English lit at university. You'd think that's where it would start.
right, but apparently not. The real passion, the deep engagement, didn't kick in until after university, when they started writing poetry themselves and, crucially, hearing other people read it aloud.
That's when they felt the power of the words.
In a visceral way, it sounds like, not just analyzing it on the page, but experiencing its impact.
And the core appeal for them is that efficiency, the density of meaning.
Absolutely. The ability to say so much with just a few words, they really emphasize that principle. So little means a lot.
In a world that just bombards us with information, endless text, constant noise, poetry feels like the antidote, doesn't it? This intense focus on distillation.
It really does. It imposes this almost brutal work ethic on language. Every single syllable has to earn its place.
The source details that work ethic, saying each word, each noun, adjective, and preposition has to work hard.
That's such a powerful standard, isn't it? Imagine applying that to everything we write or say.
Seriously, if your preposition isn't pulling its weight, cut it. If the adjective is just filler, get rid of it. It reminds me of that fine-tuning in step 3, shadowing.
How so?
Well, in shadowing, every sound, every beat, every bit of rhythm has to be just right to match the original, to flow naturally. It's precision. Poetry applies that same level of precision, but to meaning and emotion.
That's a great connection. Precision applied to meaning.
Yeah.
And the speaker gives a concrete example of how this plays out, how it provides real-world meaning for them.
The Simon Armitage poem.
Yeah, to his lost lover. And the theme is something incredibly universal: regret. Specifically, not saying the things you should have said in a relationship.
So it's not just intellectual wordplay. It connects to deep human experience.
Exactly. The overall purpose for this person is very functional. Poetry is all about saying what often goes unsaid and with passion. It finds the words for those things we feel but struggle to articulate, turns vague feelings into something concrete.
Like giving shape to emotions.
Precisely. And beyond that, the passion serves a direct, almost therapeutic role. Poetry can be such a help.
Wow.
Well, they say if they're feeling tired or depressed, they can always find a poem that will help. Doesn't matter if it's long or short. There's something out there that resonates and offers comfort or perspective.
That's a really profound point about application. That this very demanding art form requiring meticulous word choice, intense focus, actually provides direct emotional support and clarity.
It really drives home the idea that deep, focused activity, whatever it is, yields tangible personal rewards, whether that's physical fitness from tennis, mental resilience from writing, or this kind of emotional processing from poetry.
Okay, so we've looked at the learning technique
Hmm.
and we've explored these three very different passions. What's the big picture? What does it all mean when we pull these threads together?
I think we can draw some really clear, actionable conclusions for you, for anyone listening who wants to learn or deepen a skill or passion.
Right, let's nail those down. First, the learning side.
Okay, first, learning efficiency. That imitation technique gives you a clear 3-step blueprint. It's not magic, it's a system. A system for moving from that conscious, often difficult input in step 1
Listen and read.
through the necessary repetition of step 2, listen and repeat,
The practice loop.
all the way to automatic, confident output in step 3, shadowing. It's a structure designed specifically to build that muscle memory, that automaticity, quickly and effectively.
So it gives you a roadmap for skill transfer.
Exactly. And second takeaway, The engine of passion. Looking at tennis, horse riding, poetry, totally different fields, right?
Totally.
But all these deep engagements, they demand similar things. They demand perseverance. They demand adaptation. They demand a high tolerance for repetition, for practice.
You have to be willing to do the work.
You do. But the payoff is huge. They yield significant, multifaceted rewards, physical, mental, emotional. It's about finding meaning through focused activity.
Okay, let's quickly revisit some of those really striking details just to make sure they stick.
Yeah.
We covered a lot of ground on how success is structured.
Definitely. Remember the key difference within the imitation technique. Step 2, listen and repeat, is about building that basic automaticity through sheer volume, getting the reps in.
While step 3, shadowing.
That's the fine-tuning. It forces the skill deep into motor memory because you have to perform it simultaneously and accurately. Volume first, then precision syncing.
Got it. And thinking about the passions that 20-year tennis journey, it wasn't some grand internal vision at the start.
No, it was sparked by having that passionate teacher. That initial mentorship was critical. Don't underestimate the power of a good guide early on.
Right, and the horse riding that unexpected wisdom.
The paradox. The more you fall, the less it hurts. A powerful reminder that resilience isn't about avoiding failure. It's built by experiencing it safely and recovering repeatedly.
And finally, poetry's intense work ethic.
Yeah, that idea that every single word, noun, adjective, even the little prepositions has to work hard. Imagine applying that standard of clarity, of purpose to your own communication. You'd cut through the noise instantly.
It's a great benchmark for efficiency.
So the source material kind of hints that these deep passions, they aren't always meticulously planned. Sometimes they're found almost by accident.
Like the horse riding, started with that common phrase.
I've always wanted to do that. And then being challenged by that simple, direct question, why don't you then? Confronting the inertia.
So we want to leave you, the listener, with a challenge based on that. Think about it. What's this stupid thing you often say you want to do?
What's that hobby, that skill, that area of interest that's always on your mental wish list, but never quite makes it into reality?
And maybe more importantly, using the framework we discussed today, that systematic imitation technique was just one deliberate, structured practice step you could take.
Maybe it's just one session of listen and read for a language you want to learn, or 5 minutes trying to shadow a piece of music, or even a tricky concept you're trying to grasp. Just one small step using the technique.
The idea is, don't just think about wanting mastery. Don't just intellectualize it. Find a system like this one and implement the technique. Take that first step today.